A Colombian expedition team spearheaded by Rhine Labs is lost in the depths of the Infi ice fields beyond Sami. All the traces that remain are a signal distress signal. Was it an Osus incursion that claimed the team, or is it something much darker lurking within the forests of Sami? The tribes of Sami have deemed the team beyond rescue, but perhaps one penguin can still save her mentor. With the help of a Sami snow priest and a Sarkaz hunter who has claimed Sami as her home, Magellan survives her trip through the snow. However, she is called to action by one of the Cyclopses, whose future sight has foreseen the end of life on Terra itself. As such, our unlikely band of heroes must venture deeper into the Enfi icefields than any in Terran history has before, in the hopes of averting catastrophe. And that, my friends, is the backdrop of Arknights' 4th Integrated Strategies expansion. And together, we shall plunge into the heart of demonic corruption on Terra and see whether our unlikely band of heroes have what it takes to avert disaster in Expeditioner's Joklumarkar. So we will start where we always do, with some of the most important lore relevant to this event. There are 3 primary components that make up this event: Sami, the Infi Icefields, and the Collapsals, or Demons of Terra. All interesting in their own way and linked together through the long history of Terra. As such, we shall be discussing all 3 together. Sami is a country bordering the worst and best nation on Terra, Osus and Casimiras. It is situated near the very north of the continent, being the northernmost part of Terran civilization. Only the Infi icefields lie further north. It is a realm of forests and tundra. It is the homeland of the Alefians, although many other races call it their home too. Primarily the Cyclopses from the Sarkaz royal court, who have traveled there following visions of a disastrous future. Fun fact about the Alefians told to us by Calcit in the Terra lore book: Alephia is an incredibly broad term to describe the group, being made up of many different animals that are primarily superficially similar, for example, deer and giraffes. They are primarily referred to as such due to the similar nature of their horns. This is essentially Terra refusing to distinguish between them as they do Vulpo, Pero, and Lupo. Sami is not a nation united by a single government, but a coalition of tribes who all follow the will of their All-Father, Sami. Yes, their homeland and their god are both called the same thing. Mentioning the All-Father means this is probably a good time to mention their religion. The great Ferrenmut Sami once defended the lands from all threats, be they elder Ferrenmuts or demons invading from the north. He was eventually injured so severely during a battle with another Ferrenmut that he was forced to retreat underground to recover, becoming the very ground the people of Sami call home. Before he entered his eternal sleep, he tasked the Dio Beast Lord Ama with protecting his people in his stead, a task she, as a Beast Lord, was more than capable of pulling off. As such, the people of Sami formed their civilization around the worship of their All-Father and Ama, the Mother of Sami, separating into hundreds of tribes that all share common cultural values. As such, the chiefs of the tribes, alongside the snow priests of Sami, are the most respected members of any tribe. For most of Terra's history, they have been an isolated people, causing much of Terra to have many misconceptions about the country, most of which have been circulated by their greatest enemy, Osus. Osus loves themselves some land, and that sometimes means they need to take some off of others. While Osus and Casimiras were at war, Osus came to the conclusion that they needed more Originium, and thus marched into Sami. This all came about due to an earlier expedition into Sami by an Osus explorer who discovered the largest Originium vein ever within the borders of their neighbor. Although Osus could outright conquer the region through military force, especially with the disunited tribes of Sami proving little more than just a resistance, they chose not to due to one major concern: the Infi icefields and the demons that call that tundra their home. As previously mentioned not long ago, the Infi icefields is a vast, seemingly unending tundra north of Sami. This infinite icefield is strictly controlled by the powers that be. They want none to enter the region, if at all possible. From the ice field, the endless corruption of the demons seep. The demons defy traditional biology. They are both real and imaginary. Their very existence corrupts the land and causes reality to collapse. Even knowing about them can spread their infection. Hence, they are called collapsals by the Colombians, although most would simply refer to them as demons. Beyond Terra's understanding, the demons pour forth from a wound in reality. At the end of the ice field, far beyond the knowledge of those who call modern Terra their home, is the Stargate, an ancient superstructure built by the precursors. At the height of that civilization's power, it allowed one to move between planets by simply walking through it. However, since the extinction of that ancient race, the Stargates have fallen into ruin. Instead of allowing access to another planet, it has opened Terra to a reality filled with demons. Much like in Warhammer Fantasy, the better Warhammer game, demons now pour out of the gate at the north of Terra and threaten to overrun the entire planet. However unknown and dangerous the Infi Icefields are, our noble adventurers will face that danger head on, and should Sammy will it, they shall overcome that which has haunted Terra for millennia. Unlike most IS endings, all of these endings are canon. However, the endbooks you unlock by clearing these endings under different conditions tell us some stories that are not true, but most endbooks just give us some extra information on the events surrounding the ending. Although, by piecing them all together, you can arrive at a complete story. So, before we set out into the unknown, let us once again set the scene for Expeditioners Joklumarkar. The Rhine Lab scientist and Rhodes Island operator Magellan is set to lead a team headfirst into the Infi Icefields. Their journey shall lead them through Sami and follow the trail of Rhine Lab's director Mariam. Magellan is eager to find out the secrets of the North, especially after having received a flower from her mentor at the end of the Black Forest Wills a Dream event. Santella arms herself in preparation for confronting the Black Merc, a rogue Emperor's Blade of Ursus that has been completely overtaken by the demonic power that inhabits their body. The Blade's presence further spreads the demonic corruption and will transform Sami into an uninhabited land if not stopped. The group is informed that the Treescar soldiers have been dispatched to hunt down this enemy, led by the legendary Sami warrior Ekthernir, who previously rescued Magellan, Santella and Typhon from demons. While they intend to follow the easiest route into the Infi Icefields, the obstacles along their path prove far more challenging than expected. Not only must they survive the harsh environment, from infested bogs in the south to the forests up north, they also have to pay their respects to the local Sami tribes and the snow priests who might turn hostile should they prove false. Nevertheless, with the help of Typhon and Santella, Magellan is permitted to enter the north. After traveling in the Sami heartland, the trio eventually reaches a forest where they are to meet the very Cyclops who will be their guide to the end of Sami. Valorkin is here to lead the team through the Icefield and hopefully will overturn the fate of Terra. While all others get a specific moment of shine during these events, Typhon is kinda just along for the ride as the hired muscle. Her bow and arrows will certainly aid this expedition countless times before they reach the end of their journey. Starting as we should with the first ending, the expedition team finds themselves at the very north of Sami, specifically Fjallvirtun, the mountain range separating Sami from the Icefields. It is here where Sami tests the will of Magellan. Sami tests the team with a trial by combat. It uses the Sami villain, one of its avatars, to see if they can maintain their determination in the face of opposition. Through her display of remarkable bravery, Magellan secures the team victory over Sami's trial. Curious about her, Sami questions her intentions and is impressed by Magellan's determination to explore the unknown regions of her world, regardless of the danger that awaits her. She explores for the benefits it will bring to mankind, and to experience what those who came before her experienced. All she truly wishes from this expedition is new information about Sami, ecological samples, data, notes, photos, and who she will be once her journey is over. Touched by her pure endeavor, Sami accepts her as one of his children. He puts a stop to the storm and clears a path to the Icefields. With Sammy's blessing, the group enters the ice fields and continue towards the Great Gate that awaits them. In the endbooks unlocked for this ending, we see an alternate path for Magellan. Instead of continuing on her path towards the north, she instead spends her time delving into the secrets of Sammy, finding the very heart of the TERRAN mutt, collecting samples and sending them back to Ryan Labs for years to come. However, as she did not enter the ice fields to put a stop to the corruption, it eventually catches up with her. She, alongside those who research with her, fall to the corruption of the demons and are doomed to wander the land. Their explorations further spread the corruption of the Collapsals, and Magellan is lost to the north. Thankfully, Ending 2 is incredibly cheery and will certainly make up for the endbook's corrupting Magellan. We get to meet up with Ekthyrnir and his Threesker. Along their journey, they often heard tales of his pursuit of the Black Mark of Ursus. Regardless of whether they asked Amma or Sami tribes, they received the same two Foldartals. Foldartals are woodbarks that fall from Sami's sacred trees, and they are messages from Sami itself, Scar and Void. Following the will of Sami leads the team to the Threesker camp. Intending to give Ekthyrnir the Fortadils, the moment he sees them, he orders his soldiers to rise and continue across the snowfield. Searching the camp, they find Ekthyrnir's helmet. A Sami warrior only leaves his helmet behind when they are determined to die, and so they chase after him, hoping to overcome the tragedy Sami has foretold. Unfortunately, the expedition team will be too late to provide any assistance to the warriors. Reaching Fjalvartan and presenting the helmet to the Allfather, Sami guides Santella south to where the battle is taking place. In the process of slaying the Black Mark, Ekthyrnir and the Threesker have been corrupted, and the team are forced to put them out of their misery. In the end, Santella kills Ekthyrnir personally, his left arm and antler broken in the battle. However, with his death, Sami has gained a new Snow Priest, with Santella finally embracing the role Sami has always intended for her. Paying her final respects to the warriors, she wishes for their spirits to safeguard Sami from beyond the grave, and so Sami blesses them with a blizzard to mourn their passing. The endbooks this time tell us more of Ekthyrnir. Months before his eventual fate, Ekthyrnir and his warriors were escorting a migrating tribe. Since their homeland had been corrupted by the Collapsals, they were forced to leave their ancestral land and move further south. Along the journey, Ekthyrnir meets a mother calming her baby. This chance meeting allows the warrior to recall his wife, who had gone missing after she joined his tribe's last migration. He had forgotten her and did not think of her often, for a warrior has no time to worry about his family, especially when demons are at work. However, upon meeting the mother, he tries to calm the baby down. The mother apologizes to the baby for giving birth to her in such an inhospitable land like Sami, and Ekthyrnir shows his well-hidden emotions by acknowledging her words. It also tells us an alternate tale of his battle against the Black Mark. This time, it is Ekthyrnir who comes to the aid of Santella. She, alongside other shamans, had been battling the monster. Unable to secure a fatal blow against the Black Mark, Santella is overcome by the corruption leaking from the Mark's armor. With reality collapsing around him, Ekthyrnir smashes the core of the Collapsal and seals it away with his arts. However, even in this timeline, he succumbs to the corruption that leaked from the Mark. This story, excluding the part about Santella being corrupted, is probably how the battle between the Black Mark and the Threesker went down. And finally, the most depressing of the endbooks. In yet another timeline, Santella had to stop both the Black Mark and Ekthyrnir. With either proving a foe she could barely defeat, in this timeline she freezes both of them forever, transforming into a tree of ice in the process. Unfortunately, her efforts were in vain, and the pollution of the Collapsals spread across all of Terra, with a survivor making one final offering to her before continuing their feudal journey north. The surrounding land turns black with corruption, and reality falls to the demons. Within the tree, a single piece of Originium, that which was part of her face, preserved her last memory, and that piece of Originium sheds tears for Santella as it laments the tragedy of Terra. Ending 3 is thankfully far more positive, and I mean that for real this time. During the course of their journey, Valorkin received a vision where she saw a light curtain of mist, a painful pipe dream, formless needles, and a black key. When asked about it by other members of the team, she draws a map, which guides them through a far more dangerous path than their typical journeys. Valorkin's guidance leads them to an altar surrounded by cyclopses, praising a blooming, rootless flower, something clearly not of this world. When they attempt to pick it up, they find themselves unable to move it. Even focusing on it is near impossible. The flower instead takes root in the mind of the team. Virtual Earth, a rootless flower, the key to the other side. These ominous words ring in Valorkin's head. With the flower attached to them, the team heads for the Stargate. As they approach the ancient construct, a great demon appears before them. Elysion, the ascendant of Cosmoi. The team panics as the demon distorts reality around them by creating more rootless flowers, so the team are forced to battle this creature to survive. Unable to do anything more than hold the monster at bay, Valorkin steps towards the gate, using the full might of her arts to prevent the demon from consuming Sammy. Typhon tries in vain to reach her mother as she prepares to sacrifice herself for Terra, bidding farewell to her daughter. Thankfully, one of the goats of the Beast Lords is here. Amma charges the demon, goring the monster with her antlers, and unleashes all of her strength to force it back into the gate. With reality returning to normal following the defeat of the demon, the team discover that Amma has sealed both herself and the demon within whatever realm that the demon came from. With her sacrifice, Terra is rid of the threat of demonic invasion, although it will take years to push the corruption back. However, Valorkin sees a future where humanity will once more need to open the gate. Whether it will offer salvation or destruction though, she is unable to say. Endbooks are mostly cheery this ending too. The first one tells the story of Valorkin adopting Typhon. She met her crying over the corpses of her parents who had been killed by demons. Looking upon the child, she sees a vision of her future self, who will aid an expedition team who will head north to disastrous results. She also sees herself battling against the demons alongside the northern tribes. And most importantly, she sees a corrupted Typhon who will kill herself using her own oaths, but not before her arrows pierce Valorkin. She dismisses all of the visions, however, and takes the child in as her own beloved daughter. Kinda dark, but sweet in its own way. Two of the other endbooks tell the aftermath of their expedition. Typhon, who mourns the passing of Amma. Unlike the other inhabitants of Sami, Amma is gone and therefore cannot return to Sami. She is, however, comforted by a snow priest who tells her that so long as Amma loves Sami, Amma will be found in Sami. The snow priest vanishes after telling her this, so this was likely an avatar of Sami comforting Typhon. Valorkin, meanwhile, is interrogated by the snow priests, chieftains, and the Cyclops in regards to her actions in the north. As such, she tells them about her new prophecy, of how one day humanity will have a need of the Stargate, and that they must be ready to enter it when the time comes. But in case you thought these endbooks would always be happy, the last one tells an alternate ending to the story. Despite their best efforts, Amma and Valorkin would be required to sacrifice themselves to save Sami. Humanity began immediate experiments on the Stargate in hopes of understanding the origins of the collapsals. However, this would only result in tragedy. Eventually, following many failed experiments, they tear a hole in reality. However, the scientists destroy the Stargate to prevent further collapse. It was futile, however, as following the dismantling of the gate, despite seemingly cutting off the demons forever, Typhon would one day sense them return. Having found an alternate way into reality, and with no gate, there was nowhere for Terra to flee. And so, slowly but surely, the planet is overcome by the collapsals. Kind of a bummer, so let's not be depressed anymore. Many years, possibly decades after the third ending, Terra was finally able to erase the collapsals from Terra's surface, and safely establish a route to the Stargate. With the existence of the Stargate becoming public knowledge, scientists and explorers begin conducting studies and expeditions to the Great Structure. With the fears of the demons still in the minds of all the countries, Ursus and Yan would share their hidden knowledge with the rest of Terra, which leads to the formation of the Black Hole Protocol, a multinational effort to recover the technology and knowledge of the predecessors to prepare Terra to take on any future threat. Specifically in this case, the demons should they ever return. This undertaking was done with the oversight of Rhodes Island, specifically the Doctor and Calcit, who are the two most knowledgeable individuals on the predecessors. Despite the long history of Terran conflict, this project was free of such things, and all the knowledge gained from these studies was shared freely. Eventually, the Black Hole Protocol intend to reopen the Stargate to study the gate in action. This will have the intended effect of fulfilling Valorkin's prophecy. As such, they send out invitations to many different expedition teams to ensure they find the right people. Logos would be in charge of testing the Chosen using illusions conjured from his Originium Oaths, and of the few teams that passed the trial, Magellan would be the one to lead them. All who successfully pass the trial are given a vial of dimensional fluid and are tasked with delivering it to Calcit as proof of their passing. Magellan once again finds herself in front of the Stargate, and her first task is ensuring any and all collapsal taint is purged from the structure before any open testing begins. Plenty of resources are required to pull this off, and might result in various collapsal effects being placed on the research team. All gameplay related effects, but nothing stopping those effects from hindering the team in the lore. Personally, I would prefer if this step was overcome in the lore using the legacy of Alma. Something very thematic about the lingering love of Alma aiding humanity in their next step forward. Nothing directly stating what happens either way, so it's up to your own interpretation, aka you will shill my opinion as fact. Regardless, the gate is reopened and nothing bad happens. On the other side of the portal is an endless desert. The team even sends some of their members back to inform those who sent them. Through their journey, the team realize that this is the Foen Hotlands. The Foen Hotlands is a never-ending desert located to the south of Sargon, which according to Terran history was created following the legendary king of Sargon, Lugal Sargaz, and the great conqueror, Korandu Kagan, launching an expedition into the south. A quest neither legendary ruler would return from. The team quickly realized that they have not only traveled in space, but also time, as before them, the two ancient rulers battle. The battle is so intense, the explorers are almost wiped out by accident. The Stargate luckily reopens and they flee back through it, with Magellan taking one last look upon the two warriors. She knows in her heart that they too faced a demon that was as mighty as the one she did. But unlike her ragtag team of explorers, they overcame it through force of arms. Following this expedition, they once again sealed the Stargate to avoid further risks. Although not what they intended, this quest revealed to Terra the truth behind the deaths of Lugal Sargaz and Korandu Kagan. They had conquered the Hotlands, which at that point was a rainforest, and expelled the demons in the south. Despite technically being a failure, Terra learns from this experience and understands that they must reach further afield with their next expedition. This will inevitably be how Terra reaches Talos 2, although that is a story for another day. Endbooks this time are pretty cool. One confirms that Mariam, that missing Rhine Labs director from earlier, survived and made his way back to Columbia. Mariam is pretty satisfied with how Magellan has developed since he was gone, and trusts her to be the best choice for leading expeditions. Radian also attempts to recruit him for the Black Hole Protocol, which is just a little fun fact for ye. Another endbook tells us of how Magellan was nervous prior to the opening of the Stargate. She fears the return of the demons, but Typhon assures her that she will slay any that emerge. She even gets to talk with the Doctor, who reveals to her the most exciting thing they found at the gate was themselves. Clearly, they are happy to once more work on their people's technology. Another endbook describes Magellan's encounter with the elves of Sami. This is the last place on Terra where they live, and Magellan was told about them by Muses. Magellan, although unable to communicate with them, tells Muses to go and meet with them. Through Muses' contact with them, they aid Terra by helping to repair the Stargate. The final endbook tells us a timeline of the past Stargate explorers. A Sami tribe heading north aimlessly, pursuing trees with broken bark at the behest of Sami. That tribe would later be known as the Treescar tribe. For generations, the warriors of the Treescar would battle demons emerging from the ice field and defend the northern border of Sami, including Ektunir himself, as we discussed earlier. Despite many questioning the revelation from the Allfather from all those years ago, the warriors would continue their fearless struggle against the corruption until it was defeated. The King of Kings, Lugal Sargaz, commands his followers to make a similar oath upon the Golden Sand. His men begged him to refuse the great conquest of the foreign hotlands with the Knights More and Kargon, but that only elicited laughter from the great king, saying he has already conquered time with his calendar, what more need he fear? It even tells us millennia ago, when Terran civilization was still a distant dream, of how a green cat woke up in front of the Stargate. She questioned her existence, but she already knew the purpose left for her by the one who would become the Doctor. So the woman who Terra would one day know as Calcet takes the first step of her long journey, unaware of the role she will play in Terra's history. And finally, in the not too distant Terran future, from the main story timeline at least, an expedition team to the foreign hotlands are ready for their mission. Valorkin remains silent among them. She sees no vision for this new exploration, but all place their fate in her, that she will guide them to mankind's future. And that, my friends, is the story of Expeditioners Joklumarkar. It's pretty great, honestly. Even though the success of the expedition spells the defeat of the demons on Terra, or at least the easiest option for access to Terra, it doesn't erase the existential threat they pose to the planet. In several of the endbooks, we get genuine end-of-the-world scenarios. And to make matters worse, we know that there is at least one area on Terra already where the barrier between reality and the warp is frayed. Although, I am sure the attractive goat lady will handle things for the foreseeable future. Most of the endings in this event put a different focus on the individuals involved in the expedition. For the first, it is obviously a test of Magellan's character, what drives her forward, her bravery and curiosity. It is through that display that Sammy comes to accept her, which leads to the eventual completion of the expedition to the Northern Stargate. The second ending tells the story of Santala finally accepting her role as a snow priest of Sammy. Despite being an exile of her tribe, Sammy never abandoned her as one of his greatest instruments, and even in the timeline where she dies fighting the Black Milk, her sacrifice still ensures the death of that creature, and in the main timeline, she puts the tree scar to rest before they could home their country. Likewise, Ending 3 displays Typhon and Valorkin's mother-daughter relationship, as well as Valorkin's willingness to sacrifice herself to protect her child's future. Keep in mind that right after meeting Typhon for the first time, she saw her own death at her hands. Yet despite that, Valorkin loved Typhon. It's an incredibly powerful bond the two have, and I wish that was actually expanded on in a dedicated event. Valorkin's love is even rewarded with Amma's love, who, as the mother of all of Sammy, sacrificed herself for her own daughter. Ending 4 is where this character focus breaks down, but it does show us the indomitable human spirit, so we fuck with it heavy. Those two legendary heroes are very much limited to only appearing as a side note to an event, or as the motivation of certain characters' actions. For example, in the Pepe event, we get to see how Karandu Kagan has influenced the Knights Mora for decades, no, generations to come. And Pepe still works in the same profession as Lugal Sargaz's daughter, despite the 1,000 years that have passed. So even getting a glimpse into the lives of these legendary figures is already fantastic, and them showing it off to us in this way was a very nice bit of fan service that was tastefully done. I don't got much else to say to you, so I am going to leave it there. Shout out to the many wonderful members of the factory. You are the evil corrupting force from the north that is corrupting my sweet holy land. Y'all be good people, and I will see you in the next one. Listen, I wanted to make a joke at Expedition 33's expense, however, I simply haven't played the game yet. It's sitting in my library, installed right now on Steam, but that shit has not been launched a singular time.